Hello everyone. Do you have a garage, shed, or barn that you'd like to use but can't because it's packed to the rafters with items stored over the years? Well, I have a technique I'm going to show you that's going to help you get back your usable space. And it's going to save you time that you've wasted looking for tools you need to do jobs. My name is Dawn and you're watching Home North. Over time, it can be easy to let things get disorganized. When it comes time to use the space, the task of cleaning up seems daunting. I have a simple system I use to get things back in order. The term is called 5S. The idea of 5S is to organize spaces to allow work to be done efficiently and safely. Everything needed for the job is located nearby and has a dedicated location in the work area. The term 5S represents the 5 steps to obtaining this clean and organized work area. The steps are sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. I'm going to show you how to implement the 5 S's using my own greenhouse as an example. The first S of 5S is sort. So what we want to do is we want to look at everything that's in here and sort the necessary from the unnecessary. So in order to do that, we kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, what am I dealing with? In the case of the greenhouse, what activities do I do here? I do planting, I do watering, I maybe do a little bit of maintenance. So keeping that in mind, as I go through sorting the items in here, I'm going to want to decide if it's something I'm going to need on a regular basis, I'm going to want to keep it here. Other items can be put into other categories that we can review at a future date. So we're going to go ahead and sort the items, and I'm going to be placing them outside in 3 different areas. One is the necessary items that I'll need in the greenhouse for doing the day-to-day tasks. The second category are necessary items that I don't need that often or that don't have anything pertaining to do with the greenhouse activities. So I'll be putting them in a separate pile. And finally, the items that are garbage or broken, I'm going to put into the garbage pile. So let's go ahead and get started on the sorting activity. Okay, so I've brought everything from inside the greenhouse out. We've sorted it all. And as you can see, I've got 3 piles here. This pile here are my necessary items, so I'm going to be keeping these buckets. They're for planting. I've got watering containers, items for watering. And I may make a decision later to change things up, but for now I need some tomato cages for when the tomatoes get bigger. And I've kept the plastic because we're going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on the roof of the greenhouse. So these are items I figure that I do need right now. I've got a huge pile of items that I pulled out of the greenhouse that we were using for the greenhouse for storage. And right now I'm going to say they're necessary. I have to keep them. They're not part of doing any gardening, but I do need to find a new home for all these items. So that'll be the next project, building a shed. And finally, as you can see, I've got a little bit of garbage, and I've only got a little bit of garbage here. Now that might change, but I've decided that I have no use for these items. Not garbage, maybe some of them will go into recycling, but for the purposes of right now, And gardening, I don't need any of this stuff. It's too bad I didn't have more items that could go actually away for recycling or garbage, but you know, as a homesteader, you always need everything. The second S is set in order. So let's get started. Set in order is the fun part of 5S. Here you get to determine where everything goes. It's a good idea to have a vision in mind of how you see your space organized. For myself, I started by drawing out where I saw everything located in the greenhouse. I determined the number of planting beds and hanging containers based on how many plants I wanted to grow and had researched what plants could grow in what containers. I saved some space inside so I could have a working table that could also house all of my tools. Okay, now that we've finished the set in order, you can see that we've got everything ready to go for planting. So for the activities that I did, I built new planters to accommodate the more plants that I want to grow this year. I hung containers from the roof to add more growing spaces. I created a table here that has all the items I need to do my gardening and work, and they're laid out in a specific location, and I have a checklist that indicates what should be on top of the table, under the table, and even on the wall behind. So all things needed to do gardening. On each of my containers and my planters, I've got labels to indicate what's going to be growing in those spaces. Okay, I installed a window for better airflow, which will help us to keep the greenhouse cooler as we have some pretty hot days in here. We did a little maintenance in here and even installed a new hook on the door. And one last thing we did is to start thinking about safety in here as well. So trying to protect from getting hurt by covering the edges of the planters up so that there won't be any, so that we won't cut ourselves while doing planting. All right, so now it's time to move on to the third S, which is shine. I'm going to give this greenhouse a sweep and a clean, so let's get started. Shine literally means to clean up the area. For the greenhouse, I swept the floor and dusted off a few items. Start your day clean and end it the same way. With all the cleaning and sweeping in place, it's time to move on to the next S, which is standardize. How do you keep those first three S's the way you've set it up? Well, in my case, for the greenhouse, I've created a checklist. It shows the daily, weekly, and monthly tasks that need to be done in order to maintain the greenhouse the way I like it. To go a little further, I'm in the process of creating steps to outline what each one of those tasks mean. What does it mean when I say to check the electrical for the electrical connections? So I'll create standardized tasks, work instructions that will help anybody understand what it means to do that activity. Moving on to the last S is sustain. How do you ensure that these tasks will get done? 6 months from now, how do you ensure that the greenhouse will be maintained as it is? Well, there's a couple of items you could do. You could periodically audit, do a random spot check, or even create your own checklist to ensure that these items are getting done. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something about 5S today and can apply it to your upcoming project.